I'm Reverend Kim Polchow, Marshfield United Methodist Church. You may have noticed that this is really different. I'm actually in a place where I do a lot of my streams work. I'm at my computer at home. I've been on vacation for a few days, relaxing and thinking. Wanted to let you know that we're gonna do things a little bit different for the next couple of weeks. And so I thought it would be fine to do that from a different place where I usually do my editing work. For the next 2 weeks, instead of showing the stream service, we're going to show you a Ken Talks episode, and it'll become available at the same time. It's a new Ken Talks on the wise men, and Ken put a ton of work into this. I got to help make the slides. Nick's doing the editing. It's really, really worth watching. But it's not that Nick and I are taking a couple of weeks off. Instead, we're going to be working on some ways to help us connect with you and you connect with us. So that's where we're going to be spending our hours on the streams in the next 2 weeks. And then we'll be back with regular services and some new forms of connection. So when you're done watching this video, please go back into the YouTube channel and look for the new Ken Talks Wise Men and have a great time watching Wise Men Part 1. The second thing I want to tell you is that I just completed sort of a state of the church report. It's a 10-minute video on what happened in our church in 2023. And you're a big part of what happened to us in 2023. And so Nick and I agreed that it was important to make this video available to you first. Directly following me talking, you're going to get to see the video on where Marshfield UMC is and what a great big part of it you are.
Congregations have interesting memories. Sometimes it is hard to pinpoint when we start doing something and when we stop doing something, how the way we do things around here began, or when things changed. Put a pin in this year, Marshfield UMC. 2023 was a year we saw a lot of change.
The change really started last year in October when we explained all we'd done to make the financial picture clearer and more accountable. I asked you in a letter to pledge for growth. You made a record number of pledges for 2023 and pledged a record amount of gifts. And then you met your pledges.
Because of your faithfulness, we were able to expand ministries mid-year, adding budget where we needed it most, discipleship and programming for our next generations. We hired a summer intern, that's me, to kickstart new ministries for new generations. We started the summer with VBS. We had movie nights. A Lego competition, and a giant pool party. We watched kids make church friends they'll have for their lifetime. We made sure to invite grandparents and their grandchildren, as well as the daycare families. We added an activity following worship on Family Sunday. This year, when we got a small gift for all of our active families with kids and youth, we celebrated that we have 35 families with kids and/or youth active in the church.
After a successful youth mission trip, we reorganized how we do youth ministry with Coach Mack at the helm. We added youth activities and we were able to double the attendance of our youth group. We had a couple of staff transition out of their roles in children and youth ministry, and we hired Maggie to become our coordinator of Next Gen Ministries, overseeing young adult and children's ministries and assisting with youth. Several staff members rotate to be the second adult with Coach Mack at youth activities, so the youth and the church staff are getting to know each other better. Maggie has been accepted as part of a learning cohort with the Next Gen Ministries at the conference, and we'll be spending 2024 bringing back to us the best new information about how to disciple kids and youth today.
We talked a lot about our mission in 2023, to create new disciples of Jesus Christ for the transformation of the world. It's easy for churches to focus on the number of people in the pews on Sunday mornings and to feel content if that number is rising. And it is, both in person and online. But our mission drives us to focus on discipleship. Are we creating new disciples for Jesus? Are we reactivating disciples? Are the disciples in this place growing closer to Jesus? We've started to see signs that we are succeeding at our mission. We had baptisms this year, kids and youth who came forward to claim their place in God's kingdom. We have new members that wanted to claim this place as the location from which they will live out their faith journey.
We began to connect with our online congregation in new ways. Each week, we have people worshiping with us from places like Eldon, Columbia, Springfield, and Lee's Summit. Online ministry, which began as a stopgap for many churches, has become a vital ministry of our church. We decided to try to put our best foot forward online, applied and received grants for expansion of online ministries, built a video production studio, launched a new, intentionally online weekly worship service, and created new places for new people to engage with MUMC and grow in their discipleship.
While continuing to offer 4 in-person Bible studies and a weekend-long retreat, we also put ourselves out there by bringing our online Bible studies out from behind the safety of a registration wall and putting them on YouTube, where they are available to anyone in the world. Our Ken Talks classes are particularly popular. We're planning to make another grant application to expand our online discipleship opportunities in 2024, and we're planning to add a ministry of discipleship coaching for people who want someone to walk along with them as they level up their commitment to Christ.
To push the discipleship forward, we hired Carrie Sabo to be our Director of Discipleship. Carrie planned and executed the Women's Life Group, the retreat, our online safety classes, and our end-of-the-year ladies' tea, which drew more than 80 people. She also schedules our volunteers, which saw people try new things. We thank you for going out on a limb for us. Carrie has done so much good work. Church Council has offered her 10 more hours a week in 2024.
3 staff members and our council chair went to Ignite Leadership Institute at Church of the Resurrection. Resurrection's online pastor pushed us to move our Bible studies to YouTube and showed a way to build a scalable prayer ministry for the future when we have more people asking for more prayer. We came home with lots of ideas, and Becky came home with an award for the way she's turned the work of the office into ministry opportunities.
Because of the diligence of Becky, Joan, Susan, and many members of our church council, and the frugality of Carrie and Maggie, we were able to cut expenses in several areas and significantly underspend many budget line items. In addition, we hired custodians this year for significant savings. Combined with our new financial policy that helps us account for income and expenses in transparent ways, and the way you faithfully met your pledges and gave to the work of the church, these changes mean greater financial health for the church. We do expect a surplus of income over expenses at the end of the year, which, when added to our undesignated cash reserves, will put us in the position of having nearly 3 months of expenses in reserve, which is exactly where a healthy church needs to be. That financial health is something to celebrate.
But we didn't just cut costs. Your council was careful stewards. We continued to maintain the building, got the lights on in the chancel area in the sanctuary figured out, refreshed the entry to the church, made the ark more energy efficient, which is very important because it is used now more than ever, and started planning for roof replacement when it becomes necessary. We signed a contract to replace the kitchen, something people have wanted for many years, to be paid for by a combination of anonymous donation and appropriate memorial funds. We also had a donation to cover the cost of upgrading the lights on the walls of the sanctuary. and a significant donation and 2 pledges to overhaul our sound system, and a donation to renovate the Della Burford room.
We also bought all the school supplies for the Early Childhood Learning Center at Marshfield Public Schools. You've never seen so many markers in your life. Took a Christmas Eve offering for solar panels for a parsonage in Mozambique, and kept the blessing box full, thanks to the diligence of Chris Chaddock.
We say goodbye with gratitude for our faithful service to 5 awesome church council members. In 2024, we will say hello to 5 more members who will join the council to help lead our church in the future.
This year, we said goodbye to some of our favorite saints, and they were remembered not just in memorial services and on All Saints' Day, but in our conversations. We also said a warm hello to several new babies who fill our church with signs of life on Sunday mornings.
In worship, we were able to see what Karen McMillan can do as she moved seamlessly from the piano to the organ and back again. The praise team picked up the pace as Vicki Warren moved to the drum set and Mark Fogelsong picked up his guitar regularly. All our musicians came together to put on one of the best cantatas we have ever heard, and that reminded us of our humanity and need for Jesus Christ, as the choir and soloists sang that He didn't come to save the perfect. All our works are not enough, so He came and He was given unto us.
We are reminded that even though we have done a lot of work together to make this a great year for Marshfield United Methodist Church, God was the one who did the heavy lifting, transforming lives, bringing us closer to Him and each other, inspiring people to step forward in new ways, hearing and answering our prayers, and giving us the gift of His presence and His Son, Jesus Christ. May we all be created into the disciples Jesus needs us to be to transform the world in 2024 and beyond.
Shepherds kept their watching, or silent flocks by night. Behold, throughout the heavens there shone a holy light. Go tell it on the mountain, over the hills and everywhere. Go tell it on the mountain that Jesus Christ is born. Down in a lowly manger the humble child was born, and God sent us salvation that blessed Christmas morn. Go tell it on the mountain, over the hills and everywhere. Go tell it on the mountain that Jesus Christ is born. We three kings of Orient are, bearing gifts we traverse afar. Field and fountain, moor and mountain, following yonder star. Oh, star of wonder, star of night, star
Ken Thompson, and I'm a lay member of the Marshfield United Methodist Church, a congregation which has afforded me the opportunity to talk to you on this platform. I'm grateful to them, and I'm honored that you would allow me to occupy the next 15 minutes or so of your time in listening to me. I hope that you will be informed and uplifted. I would like to talk about the wise men. You know, the ones who visited Jesus in Bethlehem, as told in the 2nd chapter of Matthew in the Bible. Oh, Merry Christmas, by the way. Maybe the best place to start is by reminding ourselves of what the Bible says. I'm going to read from the NIV translation, but I'll be referring to the New Revised Standard Version and the King James Version translations as well throughout this chat. So Matthew, 2nd chapter, verses 1 to 12. After Jesus was born in Bethlehem in Judea, during the time of King Herod, Magi from the east came to Jerusalem and asked, "Where is the one who has been born King of the Jews? We saw his star in the east and have come to worship him." When King Herod heard this, he was disturbed, and all Jerusalem with him. When he had called together all the people's chief priests and teachers of the law, he asked them where the Christ was to be born. "In Bethlehem in Judea," they replied, "for this is what the prophet has written. But you, Bethlehem, in the land of Judah, are by no means least among the rulers of Judah, for out of you will come a ruler who will be the shepherd of my people, Israel." Then Herod called the Magi secretly and found out from them the exact time when the star had appeared. He sent them to Bethlehem and said, "Go and make a careful search for the child. As soon as you find him, report to me so that I too may go and worship him." After they had heard the king, they went out on their way, and the star they had seen in the east went ahead of them until it stopped over the place where the child was. When they saw the star, they were overjoyed. On coming to the house, they saw the child with his mother Mary, and they bowed down and worshipped him. Then they opened their treasures and presented him with gifts of gold and of incense and of myrrh. And having been warned in a dream not to go back to Herod, they returned to their country by another route. So now, right here at the beginning of this talk, please notice, the author of Matthew refers to the visitors as Magi, not kings. The author never states a number of Magi, nor the size of their retinues. No names of the Magi are given. No date or day is set out. The Magi only say that they saw the star in the east, not that they followed a star to Jerusalem. And then it reappears as they travel from Jerusalem to Bethlehem. That the star leads them to a house, not a cave or a stable, where they find a child, not necessarily a baby, that they leave an unspecified number of gifts of gold, of incense or frankincense, and myrrh, and finally, that they are warned in a dream by some unnamed or unspecified entity to avoid King Herod on their way back east. Within 200 years of the visit described in Matthew, the Magi had become kings, 3 in number in the western half of the Roman Empire and up to 12 in the eastern part, and all 12, or the 3, arrived on January 6, if one was following the Gregorian calendar, and January 19 if one continued to follow the Julian calendar. By the 6th century, these wise men, kings, had been given names with descriptions of their physical appearance, hometowns, and histories, even including the color of the gowns they wore when they met Jesus. And their bones were dragged around Europe until finally settling in Cologne, Germany, in the 12th century. That is, unless you believe Marco Polo's account of having seen the graves of the 3 wise men in a monument in a small town just north of modern-day Tehran, Iran. Today, we crowd our 3 wise men into our stable nativity scenes to mingle with shepherds and angels, cattle, and the Holy Family, all lit by the Bethlehem star shining from above. On or near the night of January 5 of each year, millions of children around the world leave out hay or other food for the camels or the horses of the three kings who will magically appear that night to fill those children's shoes with candy and gifts. On January 6, primarily in the Spanish-speaking world, after Mass, extended families and friends will eat the rosca de reis. That's a wreath or a crown-shaped sweet roll, hoping not to find a figurine of the baby Jesus baked inside the piece they receive, because the finder is given the honor of hosting the Candlemas or Dia de la Candelaria feast on February 2nd, which marks the end of the Epiphany season. In Spain, the three kings arrive on horseback or on floats in an evening parade, tossing candy and gifts to children who will also wake up the next morning with shoes full of goodies. In Mexico, Puerto Rico, Central and South America, January 6 is a public holiday, and the three kings are then placed in the public and private nativity displays. In much of Italy, Ephania, a woman who extended hospitality to the wise men on their journey to Bethlehem, and who was asked to join them on their journey, but was not able to do so because she had to clean house. And so she missed the start time and consequently the whole journey. She magically makes an unseen nocturnal appearance as La Befana, dressed in black and riding a broomstick, quietly leaving gifts or lumps of coal depending on that child's deportment during the last year. She often uses her broom to sweep out all the bad luck from the previous year. In France, Ireland, and Catholic Northern Europe, where Christmas is celebrated in a gift-giving frenzy on or near December 25, January 6 is remembered as Little Christmas, with an exchange of small gifts among family members or close friends. How do such elaborate celebrations develop around just those 12 verses in Matthew? Where do all these embellishments come from? Well, if we take just a minute to recall how we celebrate Christmas, we might get an inkling of an insight into understanding exactly how it came to be. The embellishments, I mean. Well, what is a magi? Sometime before the 8th century BC, a tribe of people who lived in what is now Iran were referred to the Persians as Magians. The word magi is the Latin plural of that Persian word. The singular is magus, the Greek plural is magos, and by the 6th century BC, the Persian word began to be used to describe the priests of Zoroaster, one of the earliest monotheistic religions. That is, they believed in one God. Darius the Great used the word Magians in 520 BC to refer to those whom he believed had the ability to use the supernatural to create a result in the natural or real world, who were possessors of superior knowledge, especially watchers of the stars, dream interpreters, and predictors of the future. While in Babylonian captivity, Daniel interpreted the dreams of the king when the king's magi failed, and therefore Daniel was made the Rab, R-A-B, magi, the chief magi of the realm. As the Macedonians Hellenized the Near East with Greek culture during the years following the exploits of Alexander the Great, and even though they were quite taken with many Persian ways of living, they were quite competitive as well, something along the line of, "Our wise men are smarter than your wise men." So the Greek word magos, which was borrowed from the Persian magians, which is the same as the Latin magi, became a pejorative, an insult. So instead of a person with useful wisdom, a magos was a trickster, illusionist, a sorcerer, or a magician, a charlatan fortune teller, if you will. So when Luke describes early Christian contact with a magos, as in Acts 8 and Acts 13, he uses the word to describe a fraud exposed or at least overpowered by the Holy Spirit. But what did the author of Matthew intend by using the word magos in Greek or magi in Latin? The earliest Christian writers seem to lean toward the magician meaning. But by the 3rd century AD, the interpretation of the word changed to mean sages, really smart people, wise men, who were seeking and recognizing the divine presence in the world. By the reign of James I of England in the early 1600s, when the King James Version of the Bible was published, the translators had no trouble in substituting the words wise men for the word magi. The same translation is used in the New Revised Standard Version, while the NIV just uses the word magi, which has now worked itself into the English language. But the NIV adds a footnote which says, traditionally, wise men. Then how did the wise men become kings? The author of Matthew uses the word meaning king several times in those 12 verses to refer to Herod and to Jesus, but never in reference to those who came to see Jesus. Nevertheless, by the 3rd century AD, these men had sprouted crowns. There are carvings and drawings in the catacombs of Rome dating to the 3rd century. There are mosaics in the churches of Rome and Ravenna, Italy, dating from the 4th and 5th centuries, depicting 3 finely dressed, crowned men bowing before Jesus. Writings of that period describe the Magi as kings to fulfill Old Testament scripture, which was being reinterpreted as prophecies about Jesus. Psalms 72, originally written about Solomon, was read to foretell these Magi kings. It says, "The kings of Sheba and Seba will present him gifts. All kings will bow down to him." Isaiah chapter 60 says, "Nations will come to your light, and kings to the brightness of your dawn, and all from Sheba will come bearing gold and frankincense." Around AD 200, Tertullian, the well-respected Christian writer, argued that the Magi were astrologers by trade and were considered to be kings. However, at the Protestant Reformation in the 16th century, John Calvin, the progenitor of much Protestant theology, wrote that anyone who would label the wise men as kings must have been stupefied, he said, that all might laugh at their gross ignorance. In the 1st chapter of Esther, the author refers to the Magi who advised King Xerxes as the 7 highest nobles in the kingdom. But then there's Pliny the Elder in the 1st century who described the Magi as wizards who poured boiling earthworms in ears to cure toothaches. Kings, nobles, scientists, or wizards, Matthew never really says. But we do know from the gifts that they gave to Jesus and from the expense of making such a journey that these men were rich and highly motivated. Clearly, since medieval times, most of the Christian West is more than satisfied with the Magi being kings. By the end of the 3rd century in the Western Roman Empire, the number of Magi was determined to be 3, primarily because that matches the number of different gifts given. I guess no self-respecting Magi would give the same gift being given by another Magi, even if it was gold, frankincense, or myrrh. In AD 250, the church father Origen identified the Magi as Belshazzar, Gaspar, and Melchior. In preparing to talk on this topic, I read that in a 4th century mosaic on the wall of the Church of the Nativity in Bethlehem, there were depicted 3 wise men dressed as Persians. Strangely, in 614, when the Persians came to conquer Palestine, the Church of the Nativity was one of the only ones the Persians spared from destruction. Apocryphal? I don't know. By the 6th century, Melchior, Gaspar, or Caspar, and Balthazar became the names of the 3 kings. According to tradition, but far from unanimously accepted, Melchior had white hair, a long beard, and came from Persia, bearing a gift of gold and wearing a golden or red cloak. Gaspar was ruddy-complexioned, wearing a green cloak from southern Arabia or India, bringing frankincense as a gift. And Balthazar was dark-skinned with a thick black beard, wearing purple robes from Ethiopia with a gift of myrrh. Since they all arrived at Herod's palace in Jerusalem together, it's assumed that they and their entourages traveled on the journey together. The tradition continues that the three became Christians and witnessed to their faith when they returned to their homelands, and they had a final reunion in Armenia just before their deaths. Some believe that they were martyred, others that they died of natural causes at very advanced ages. Church tradition teaches that about 300 years after their visit with Jesus, Helena, the Christian mother of the Emperor Constantine, located their bones in Jerusalem and had these relics reinterred in St. Sophia's Basilica in Constantinople, present-day Istanbul, where they resided temporarily until the First Crusade, when they were stolen and hauled to the Cathedral of Milan, Italy. Even in death, these peripatetic wise men were unable to stay put, until finally Frederick Barbarossa, the Holy Roman Emperor, gave their remains to Rinaldo, the Archbishop of Cologne, who built a suitable repository in the Cologne Cathedral in what is now Germany. Today, in that cathedral, where the weary bones have seemingly found permanent rest, there is a marker, the English translation of which is, "Having undergone many trials and fatigues for the gospel, they met one last time in Armenia. Thereupon, after the celebration of Mass, they died. St. Melchior on January 1 at the age of 116, St. Balthazar on January 6 at the age of 112, and Gaspar on January 11 at the age of 109. And all of that came out of those 12 short verses in Matthew. Oh, but there's so much more. What is Epiphany? The author of Matthew never used such a word. And what is the gifts? Gold, frankincense, and myrrh. What are they? And what would a young child want with such gifts? And what did the Magi receive from their visit? And what do we receive from the inclusion of this birth narrative in the Gospel of Matthew? For some answers to these questions and more talk from me, join into part 2 of the story of the Magi, available soon on these same channels. So Merry Christmas, and may your souls be filled with the gifts of Epiphany.